All right, we are live. Give me a second. Let me let everybody know. All right. All right. One more place. Let the Discordian know, and we can get started. Okay. All right, we be here. All right, live chat turned on. Okay. All right. Say okay and all right. One more time, E. One more time. Okay, so we're starting a new chapter. If you're new to the stream, I am reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo if you want to buy your own copy and read along at your own pace. We are currently over halfway done with the book. We are on page 297. So page 297 of the paperback. We're on chapter 4, A Boy and His Barrow. Get some drink. And we can get started. I forgot my glasses again. Wonderful. Smooth. Here we go. We are determined by our society to such an extent that we can only live as human beings if we turn anarchic. Like anarchy? Anarchic? Yeah. Philip Roth, Sabbath Steeder. Chapter 4, A Boy and His Barrow. 1. 13 years prior, Marjorie Stanford gave birth to her son Alex on August 18th. He was cut from her womb after a pelvic exam that deemed him too large to pass safely through the birth canal. She named him after her mother, Alexandra, and she loved him right up until the point he began to talk. Alex Stanford's first words would come extremely early, when he was just shy of 3 months. His mother had been preparing a bottle for him when she heard him cry from inside his crib down the hall. Fat! Marjorie cut the gas to the burner, rushed from the kitchen, dashed down the hall and into the home's only bedroom. Alex lay on his side, his heavy, fluid-swollen head resting on a pale blue pillow, his eyes as wide as eggs as he shouted once more, "Fuck!" Staggered with shock, Marjorie braced herself on the doorframe and said, "You cannot be saying what I think you're saying. Fuck!" Alex confirmed proudly. "Stop saying that. Never say that word. It's horrible. Fuck, fuck, fuck." Shaking, Marjorie left the room to collect herself, for she'd had an overwhelming urge to reach into the child's crib and smack him on the mouth. She believed one should never lay their hands on a child of Alex's age, so she retreated to the kitchen to pour herself a glass of wine and calm down. All the while she sipped her red, Alex continued to shriek his expletive. She had no idea where he'd heard the word. She rarely had visitors, and when she did, they were good Christian people who would never utter such vulgarities. Alex's father had been the type of man to utter awful words such as Alex was now shouting with glee, but the man had never been in the child's presence to be overheard in the first place. His father had been the biggest mistake of Marjorie's adult life, so much so that she didn't even care to call the man by name. He was simply Alex's father, and only in the most biological sense of the word. Alex's father had abandoned her the day after she told him she was with child. Thinking of him now, the way he'd spoken to her and treated her, made her tremble with rage. She continued to drink into the night, as Alex's screeched obscenities morphed from expletives to cries of hunger. She passed out around 9 o'clock and woke up at 3:45 in the morning, hungover and disheveled, a long red line arching angrily across her face where her cheek had come to rest on the edge of the dining room table. She discarded the now cold milk and refilled the bottle with fresh formula. She'd been unable to produce sufficient milk from her own breast to satiate Alex's hunger, and thus had to rely on evaporated milk products. The fact that her child had gone without nourishment for so long was lost on Marjorie. All she was concerned with was the fact that he was no longer repeatedly screeching that foul word. Also lost on her was the fact that her 3-month-old son was speaking a good 3 months before he should have been. Drank. Bobble's accelerated intellect would trend in the same direction throughout the years. It seemed that his inability to walk, or so much as move his appendages, had sped up his mental growth by incredible degrees. Marjorie was aware that his enlarged cranium was due to excess fluid around his brain, but she couldn't help but believe that his brain was also growing inside that massive skull of his. By the time the boy was 3, his head was larger than his torso. Bulging veins ran up the sides of his scalp like a row of tridents. His appearance sickened her. His face was not even his was a face not even a mother could love. His eyes perpetually bulged from their sockets due to the pressure ever present behind them, and she expected that any day she might walk into his room to find his eyeballs resting on his cheeks, the nerve roots of each the only thing keeping them from rolling away to parts unknown. The older Alex got, the worse his mouth became. By the age of 5, when he should have started school like all the other, in her words, normal children, Marjorie was well aware she couldn't allow him out of the house. Not because of his condition or the disability that came with it, but because the boy wouldn't stop cussing. Going anywhere with him drew attention to them like opposite pole magnets. Most men they came across thought Alex's shouted vulgarities the height of comedy, while most women were horrified, and they all blamed her. Certainly they believed she was the cause of his delinquent speech patterns. Who else could be blamed? She had no husband of which to speak, another thing that had cemented her status as a social pariah, but no one else lived with her either. If Alex wasn't learning these terrible words from her, where was he learning them? The truth of the matter was, she had not a clue as to where his predilection for vulgarisms had spawned, and, oddly enough, neither did Alex. All this forced Marjorie into a reclusive lifestyle. She had no friends. Even the small number of sociable acquaintances she'd had before Alex's birth were all long gone, and the few visitors she had over to the house were door-to-door salesmen, Jehovah's Witnesses, and the occasional Christian about their missionary business. She let them in simply to have someone, anyone, to talk to who was not her foul-mouthed child. Whenever someone showed up, she would hide Alex in the bedroom closet, which she had soundproofed, albeit poorly, with blankets and cardboard, all secured with the heaviest tape she could acquire. Of course, the soundproofing would inevitably fail, and her visitor on any given day would ask who was screaming such horrible muffled things within the depths of her home. She'd lie and blame a neighbor child, or completely ignore their inquiries and change the subject. Yet neither tactic worked for long, especially not once Alex had learned her name. Hello, everybody. If you're just now joining us, I'm reading The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. Get it on Amazon, or you can buy a signed copy from me. 2. The Cortez family carnival welcomed Bobble with open arms. He was given a bunk inside the tent men's car before Mother Nurture realized that wasn't going to work in the long run. The tent men slept deep and hard, as Cy had found out several years back during the incident with the hobos, and Bobble needed more vigilant care than they could offer. Thus, he was moved into Mother Nurture and Father Time's cabin car until other arrangements could be made. His first night in the caboose, Bobble couldn't sleep. He felt eyes on him everywhere. even though he could hear Father Time snoring and Mother Nature's soft, whistling breath coming in legato bursts. He could see out the window to the stars beyond, and nothing blocked his view of them, meaning no one lurked at the picture window looking in. He was glad to have been removed from his mother's care, if the word care could be included in the same sentence as the word mother when discussing the woman who'd spat him from her loins. 13 long years of neglect had led to him being adopted by a carnival, of all things. Whether he would be happy here had yet to be revealed, but he liked these weirdos, especially the Cyclops. He liked that one-eyed bastard best of all. Bobble put off most people, and he understood their position. He was all of 3 foot long, couldn't really say 3 feet tall when describing someone who's perpetually horizontal, and his head was quite literally the same size as his torso and appendages combined. Immobility due to his hydrocephalic condition had caused his arms and legs to atrophy and draw inward, flush with his body. Friction wounds and bed sores were a constant problem, one his mother had ignored. He'd been septic twice in his life, once at the age of 3, and then again shortly after his 10th birthday. His doctor, when Mother had finally deemed a visit necessary to skirt a murder by neglect charge, had called him a medical marvel. Bobble should have died shortly after birth, Doc had said, because the fluid on his brain couldn't be drained. Thus, Bobble's head had grown while the growth of his body remained stagnant. One of the greatest testaments to his mother's lack of care for him and his condition was the fact that she pushed him around in a wheelbarrow with nothing more than a flat pillow under his inert body. And said pillow had only been added after one of his rare doctor visits in which Doc had warned that flesh to metal contact would only worsen his condition. Bobble knew his mother didn't care what happened to him, but she certainly cared what others thought of her. So she'd placed under him a raggedy throw pillow, one she'd hidden in the hall closet for years, lest people think her impoverished, and called it a fix. The first order of business after Mother Nature took in Bobble was to offer a replacement for the threadbare throw pillow. She folded a thick quilt she said had been made by someone named Quill into 4s, while a giant of a man called Bull lifted Bobble tenderly from his barrow. Bull held Bobble like a baby while his wheelbarrow was first cleaned, then padded with the quartered quilt. Only then did Bull place him back inside. Bobble had never known such comfort. "What do you do about your bathroom needs?" Mother Nature had asked once he was settled. "I shit myself and wait for the hag to clean me," Bobble had responded in his screechy way. "Well, we can't have that," said Mother Nature. "Definitely not," agreed Father Time. Do you know when you have to go?" "Does the Pope fuck in the Vatican?" Father Time laughed. "Boy, you got a mouth on you, that's for sure." "Got a problem with that?" asked Bobble. "Not at all. I think it's endearing, honestly. Talk however you like." "Good," said Bobble, his guard dropping. "And yes, I know when I have to shit. What of it?" "Can you let us know so that one of us can help you to a bathroom?" asked Mother Nature. "Honey, does it look like I can sit on a crapper? I can't even lift my own goddamn head." "Okay," Mother Nature said, and Bobble was impressed with how cool and collected the woman remained despite his abhorrent attitude toward her. "Then can you let us know as soon as you've soiled yourself, so that we can clean you up? I don't like the idea of you sitting in your own mess." "Oh, we could be proactive here instead of reactive," said Father Time. "If you know when you need to go, we can put something under you. Might save us from having to wash your bedding every time you get the urge." Bobble was taken aback. Did these people truly want to take care of him in such a way? He'd expected them to put on a display in some He'd expected them to put him on display in some dark tent and profit from the gawkers who attended their shows, but there hadn't been word one about joining their freak show, which they referenced as a geek show. Bobble, however, called a shovel a shovel. "Why do you guys care so much?" Bobble had asked. We take care of our own, said Mother Nurture. And you are one of us now. Exactly, said Father Time. Well, I will be shitted in white. How about that? Father Time laughed. But Mother Nurture didn't seem to find Bobble amusing in the slightest. In fact, she already looked over him as if he'd been spawned from her body instead of the hag's rotten crotch. He couldn't help but think that was love in Mother Nurture's eyes, a need to protect and care for him. And the concept was so alien to him that he first mistook it for anger and displeasure, leading him to apologize, which was entirely out of character for the boy. She had so thoroughly disarmed him. What are you saying sorry for, lovely? Asked Mother Nurture. You seem upset? Mother Nurture solemnly shook her head. No, dear. Well, that's not entirely true. I'm appalled at the way your mother treated you. I am angry at that woman, beyond all rationality. But please know I'm not upset with you in the least. You deserve so much better. I do, Bobble said, honestly puzzled by this development. Yes, love, you do. You're one of us now, and I will protect you until my final breath. Me too, said Father Time. Bobble began to cry. Tears were foreign things, and their presence on his face disturbed him, for mankind fears that which they do not understand. Just now joining us, I'm reading from the last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. Now, for a drink. In case you don't know, I stop at every subchapter. So, 3. On his second full day with the carnival, Sai came to see him. Mother Nurture had Sai bring Bobble a plate of lunch. Sai carried in his own food as well so they could eat together. Sai wheeled Bobble beside the clawfoot sofa, put the coffee table between them, and dug into his bowl of sausage, grits, and eggs. That looks good, said Bobble, adding a note of derision to his voice. It is, Sai said around a mouthful of food. How's yours? Oh, mine? Bobble said. Wouldn't know. You know, being that I can't feed myself. Oh, Sai said and swallowed. I'm sorry. Do I need to feed you? Bobble stared for a moment, then said, That would be nice, yeah. Sai scooped up a bit of eggs and grits and shoveled the mess into Bobble's mouth. Bobble chewed while Sai switched spoons and worked on feeding himself. The boys chatted while they ate. You born like that? Bobble asked. Like what? Said Sai. With the one eye. Oh, yeah. How about you? I was born with 2 eyes. No, I mean, Bobble's laughter was as grating as his tone of voice. I know what you meant. I'm just giving you shit. Yes, I was born with a watermelon for a head. So, you're living with us now? For good? Seems that way. Is your mother always like that? Asked Sai. Like what? I don't know. Is she always that mean? Calling her mean is like calling a rabid baboon a cuddly buddy. Sai laughed. She didn't seem like she liked you very much. She doesn't like anyone very much. What was it like living with her? Oh, it was a blast, let me tell you. You're being facetious. Facetious. I would have said sarcastic, but facetious works too. How old are you? Sai shrugged. 12 or 13? No older than 15. Something like that. You don't know how old you are? Sai shook his head as he chewed a bite of sausage. Why not? Sai swallowed. My mother abandoned me when I was a baby. The carnival took me in. I don't even think about my mother as my mother. My mom's name is Marianne Stout, but everyone calls her Quill. Quill? It's a stage name. Most everybody here has one. Mother Nurture, Father Time, Bull, Clay, and so on. I wish you could have met Marianne's brother Peter. They called him Paper. But Quill's his sister. He let her tattoo him all over, so Paper and Quill. Get it? I'd have to be duller than a box of hammers not to. True, Sai said with a laugh. Anyway, Paper's dead now. Some cop shot him. Bobble nearly choked on his grits. Cy lifted the boy's head and turned it to the side in case he vomited. I'm I'm good, Bobble said, calming. Did you say cops killed him? Yeah, during a jailbreak. I miss him real. A jailbreak? It's a long story, said Cy. Brother, I don't have anything but time. Okay, you want to hear the whole thing? I can't fucking wait. Over the next 2 hours, Cy told it all, as he would come to tell so many others throughout his life. But he didn't start with the jailbreak and Peter Stout's death. He went further back and told Bobble everything, even the story of the walls of Tyrans, which Bobble found fascinating. At first, Cy seemed nervous, but as his story progressed, so did the assuredness of his cadence. The one-eyed bastard was a natural-born storyteller, in Bobble's opinion, and he could have listened to Cy talk twice or thrice as long. And that's it, Cy said as his story wrapped up. Both boys had finished their food, and their dirty bowls sat between them like islands between landmasses. Oh, wow. What a life. I've spent most of mine in the closet, so I don't have much to tell. I'd like to hear it all the same, if you want to tell it, that is. Whatever you want to do. I'm not the storyteller, you are. Psst, Cy spat. Everyone's a storyteller. All you have to do is remember the order of things. I like that. Okay, I'll give it a shot. This is what Bobble told Cy. Reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flamin' Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me. Hi, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. Hey, Nick, you just stopped by to say hi? Well, hello, my good friend. We are booking along. We got Bobble in the house. 4. You guys weren't the first ones the hag tried to pawn me off to. First, she tried this hospital in Cleveland that was supposed to care for retarded kids and whatnot. But once they got to asking me questions and found out I was a waterhead and not a dumb shit, they told her they weren't interested. Then there was another hospital in Los Angeles that catered to invalids like me. They almost took me. They didn't consider it long, though, because I told the admitting physician to suck my long and strong, and we were ushered out by 2 guys bigger than my cock. The hag blew so much money flying me here and there that she annihilated her savings in less than 2 months. I know what you're thinking. Why not just spend the money on my care instead of shitting it all out trying to get rid of me? But you have to remember, the hag hates me more than she hates herself, which is strange, given that she's the reason I'm alive in the first place. The last place she tried to drop me off actually took me. Some place local to us this time. She drugged me with the paragorgic and... What's a paragorgic? Opium is what it is. The stuff makes you constipated. So they use it to treat diarrhea. It's in cough syrup, too. Makes you not give a shit. The fact that the hag kept large quantities on hand probably explains why she treated me the way she did. Anyway, she doped me to the gills and had me admitted to this convalescent home for old fucks who couldn't remember their own names. Told the shitbirds I was catatonic. She almost got away with it, too, and nearly murdered me in the process. I'm dreaming of some pretty lady tickling my balls when suddenly I wake up to find some fat lady washing my dangles. She's just scrubbing the flesh off my sack when I came to and say, "Mind the wallpaper, Susie." She screams and jerks away. I watch her go down like trash in a chute. Just a big bundle of ass plummeting for what felt like ages. Which is strange, because she was so big you'd think gravity would have helped her more than hindered. She finally hit the ground and her skirt hiked up, and when I tell you this, she spread like peanut butter, what I mean is I saw her clam wink at me. She runs hollering out of the room, and the old guy in the next bed to me says, "Were that bush I saw?" And I say, "Go back to sleep, Henry." Don't know if the guy's name was Henry or not, but he looked like a Henry. Ever see someone you know right then and there what their name is? Probably, seeing as how your name's Cy and all. Anyway, doctors and nurses and looky-loos flood in, calling me a miracle and a blessing and God's good work, and I'm laying there like a zit on some ass cheeks wondering what all the fuss is about. One nurse says, "He can talk?" And I say, "I can fuck too, Mary Jane. Fancy a roll in the sheets?" She goes, "My word." And I go, "My cock." And some of those uptight fuckers even laughed. one of the docs, he says, your mother told us you've been in a coma since birth. And I say, now what kind of sense does that make when I'm talking now? How'd I learn to speak? Fucking osmosis? Doc frowns. He was one of them types whose forehead turns into a pack of wieners when he frowns. So I tell him as much. You got a pack of wieners for a forehead. And that one nurse repeats herself. The broken record says, my word. So I play along and say, my enormous cock. Another doctor pushes through the crowd, and I can tell this guy's in charge here because he's all stern and shit when he says, we won't have that kind of vulgarity here, son. And I say, Dad, is that you? He says, what? And I ask him again, are you my daddy? He says, no, I'm the head of this facility. And I say, not anymore, you aren't. Seeing as my head's bigger than yours, I got other things bigger than yours too, if you want to see. No one found this funny except for old Henry in the other bed. He's over there just a cackling. God bless the men and old fucks. Cy, too, is laughing, hearing this. Laughing so hard, he's nearly screaming. It's almost 2 full weeks before they tracked down the hag. They had to call the cops and everything. The stupid idiot pulled up stakes and left, just vanished without a trace. Left her home and everything inside, just abandoned it all, and ran off 3 states away. Only reason they found her is because she left a forwarding address with her last job so they could send her a final check. How badly you gotta hate someone to leave behind all your earthly belongings and run for the hills? Quite literally, too, because the hag fucked off to the Appalachian Mountains. Instead of taking me with her, they had her, instead of taking me to her, they had her transported back and made her take me home. So much for my well-being, eh? They really need an arm of the government that looks after children, but I doubt that'll ever happen. Child Protective Services wouldn't be established in America until 1980, which says a lot about this country's priorities. Next thing I know, I'm back with the hag, sleeping in a closet, without a single fat nurse to play with my balls. What a world, what a world. 3 months go by and I've driven the hag far past crazy. She loses her hair and stops bathing. I expect at any moment I'm going to wake up to a quiet house stinking of roadkill because she offed herself. But sadly, she always did care more for herself than anyone else. And every morning I woke up to her disheveled ass staring at me from the door to my room. She sounded like a robot there at the end. What do you want for breakfast? Beep, beep, boop. Steak and eggs. I was just picking at her. But she was well and truly gone by this time. Wouldn't last long. Before a hot minute, I thought she was going to fry that final wire connecting her to reality. And even though that terrified me, I kept right on pushing. Fuck this and fuck that. Eat my ass and eat my cock. So on and so forth. Eventually, she just stopped listening. I saw the switch flick. She just turned me off. Wasn't even tuning me out, because tuning me out would require her to acknowledge my existence. And when that final switch triggered, that's when she stopped feeding me. You know, we can go a long time without food. After 3 days, you stop even getting hungry. I slept a lot. Didn't have the energy to so much as open my eyes. But what we can't go without is water. She had that one figured out too, though. She set up this bottle with a nozzle that folks use to water hamsters and shit, and hung it from the ceiling by a length of her doily thread. She positioned it just so, and I was able to lip the thing and get a squirt or two of water. I knew she wouldn't refill it, so I only drank once my head started hurting. You know, folks get hangovers because alcohol dehydrates you. Not sure how I know that, but the same could be said for everything else I have in this gargantuan noggin of mine. Currently reading The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links down there in the doobly-doo. Oh, you won that copy of Ulysses, Zoop? Awesome. Congratulations. For those of you following along at home, we're on page 308, subchapter 5. Cy had stopped laughing some time ago. Now the boy sat back against the sofa's cushions and exhaled at length. Yeah, me too, brother. Me too, Bobble said. He tongued a lone grit loose from between his teeth and swallowed it. We treat each other like shit, Bobble added after a time. The best thing for all of us would be something like a fucking meteor erasing us all like it did the dinosaurs. I mean, take us, for example. You and me. Freaks, even among freaks. I. Sigh sought the right words, and Bobble could only sit and wait for the other boy to continue. I don't look at it like that. I think there's a lot of love and kindness in the world. Sigh paused, as if he himself were warring with his statement being absolute truth. I've only ever seen the ugly side of the world on the rare occasion I've been outside the carnival. But here it's nice. Mom and dad, father time and mother nurture, my entire family, they love me unconditionally. Do we have our disagreements? Yes, but we always come together in the end. I think, if I may, that the family we seek is better than the families we are born into. Everyone here is different, but we all get along for the most part. And now that paper is gone, there's not a single blood connection between us. We just have to find the love in the world. Assuming it doesn't exist doesn't help anybody. Once more, Bobble asked, "How old are you again?" Sai smiled. Does age really matter? I think we're all products of our upbringings. You've been treated like crap your entire life, so all you see is the mess of the world. Whereas I've only known people to love me. We're all outsiders until we find people who care about us. So what you're saying is, shut up, Bobble, and let me love you. Bobble punctuated his statement by poking out his swollen tongue at Sai. Sai simply nodded. Exactly. I already like you. Maybe that's because, in a sense, you're right. We might look different than anyone else here, but inside, we're all looking for acceptance, and if nothing else, we can rely on the solidarity that comes with being unwanted by the world at large. My cynicism versus your optimism. Something like that, yeah, said Sai. Which brings me back to my point that, although we're all different and odd in our own special ways, we find common ground in accepting that what the outside world deems unacceptable. You talk like a fucking professor or some shit. Sai shrugged. I just talk. Yes, you do. At length, too. Hey now, Sai said, laughing. You're the one who called me a storyteller. I did, Bobble said, blinking. Unbeknownst to Sai, it was Bobble's way of nodding in agreement. I think you should meet someone, Sai said as he got up from the couch. You up for a ride down the Midway? Up as I'll ever be. Good. Let's go. I am currently reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me. New pen name. Links down in the doobly-doo. Go cop a copy of the book. Cop a copy. And then drop a squat and read your copy. Copy? 6. It was a beautiful day. The sun was high and hot. Yet there came a cool breeze scented with wild sage. Sai pushed Bobble through the carnival, stopping here and there to introduce the boy in the wheelbarrow to everyone who had a moment, and even some of those who didn't, like Hank, for instance. Bobble gazed up from his barrow at the monstrous Ferris wheel looming over him as Sai greeted Hank and informed the operator that Bobble was now part of the family. Bobble had felt small all his life, but never as small as he did when under the presence of the wheel's all-seeing eye. What must it be like to ride on such a thing? To be so far above the world, looking down on others as so many had looked down on him. Pleasure's all mine, Bob, Hank said, extending his hand. Bobble only stared at the man's pale palm. Sai struggled. He can't move. Oh, sorry about that, man. Here. Hank scooped Bobble's flaccid right hand into his own and gently pumped it. An absolute pleasure. How big is this fucking thing? Bobble couldn't take his eyes off the wheel above. She's a beaut, ain't she? Hank stuffed his hands in his pockets and gazed upward. The old girl is 512 feet, give or take an inch. Ever been on one? Do I look like I've ever been on something like that? Well, pardon me, Hank said, but he was laughing all the same. You want to ride? I'm running behind, but I need to give her a test run if you want to get up there. Only thing I'd like more is a warm mouth on the tip of my cold cock. Hank barked laughter. Oh, Bob, you're something else, fella. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. I've heard some polite talk from sailors afflicted with Tourette's. I've heard more polite talk from sailors afflicted with Tourette's. That's Bobble, said Cy, joining in the laughter. All right, then. Let's get you in a bucket, my foul-mouthed friend. I'm pissing myself with excitement. Hank and Cy stared in horror at the spreading darkness on the front of Bobble's pants. Once Bobble was clean and dry, thanks in large part to Father Time passing by at the right moment, Cy trucked him back to the Ferris wheel. Hank lifted Bobble from his barrow and spent a good 5 minutes struggling with how to secure the kid before finally giving up and placing Bobble back into the wheelbarrow. Thanks for trying, said Bobble. Oh, we ain't done by a long shot, son. Old Hank's nothing if not inventive. Give me a minute. Bobble and Cy watched Hank as he worked. The operator unscrewed a safety railing from one of his gondolas and laid the arched rod to one side of the loading platform. Then he ran off, vanishing for several minutes before returning with a car seat. Where'd you get that? Cy asked, confused. Been meaning to install one of these for ages, for parents who want to ride with the youngins. I figure now is as good a time as any. The perfect time, one might say. Here, hold this while I attach the damn thing. Cy did as he was told, holding the car seat in place while Hank secured the seat to the gondola. Hank managed to thread the screws on one side through the empty slots left by removing the bar, then had to drill new holes to fasten the back of the seat to the rear of the gondola. When he was done, Hank took a step back and tugged at the edge of the car seat. The whole gondola swayed, as it had been made to do, and Hank nodded with satisfaction. All right, let's get you strapped in, son. Hank lifted Bobble from his barrow and placed the boy in the car seat. He buckled Bobble in and tugged at the loose straps until they had very little give. Tight enough to keep the boy safe, yet loose enough not to cut off circulation. The way Hank had anchored the seat at an angle allowed for Bobble to rest his head on the car seat. As long as the gondola didn't sway too far in reverse, Bobble was in no danger of tumbling out. At the very worst, the straps would catch, holding his body in place while his head canted forward. It might hurt, but he'd survive. You riding with him? Hank asked Cy. If there's room? Chuckling, Hank said, You ain't that goddamn big, boy. I beg to differ, Bobble said from his car seat. You shut up, Cy said. The three of them had fallen into the simple camaraderie that accompanied friendships, new and old. Without any of them ever realizing it, their light-hearted mockery would become only one of the many side effects of their newfound familial status. Cy climbed into the gondola and sat next to Bobble, and only then did Hank mention yet another problem. How in the hell am I going to make sure you don't fall out? Hank said, scratching at the curly hair atop his head. I can just hold on real tight. I'll be fine. You might be fine, but I like addressing problems before they become problems. And the issue I see here is if folks are going to ride with their children, I need to make sure they're just as safe that... You know what? I got it. Hold on a minute. Hank dashed off and disappeared between the geek show and Lady Quill's tent. Does he do that often? Asked Bobble. Do what? Cy wanted to know. Run off all the goddamn time. Cy considered this, then said, Not really? I've never known him to be so spontaneous, so all this is new to me too. Why is he so dark? Asked Bobble. Huh? Cy said, blinking in confusion. He's about 10 shades darker than anyone else around here. He's a Negro, said Cy, but Bobble could tell Cy was uncomfortable with the word, a word Bobble had never heard before. What's a Negro? It's when... Okay, let me start over. So, people from different areas of the world, well, some are darker and some are lighter. Wait, you've never seen a Negro before? Only people I've seen have been the same color as me or slightly darker. Then again, I don't get out much. Don't know how to drive. You're saying you've never seen. Wow, that's something. What is? Nothing. It's just that I thought I was sheltered. Living in a closet will do that to a person. How do you know so much about everything but don't know what a Negro is? Probably same as how you think people are capable of love. Just lack of experience, I guess. This is nuts. What is? Asked Bobble, not understanding. You, I guess, is what I'm talking about. Just goes to show that nobody knows everything. No shit, Shirley. Bobble stared into the distance. So, Hank isn't from America? Yeah, he is. He fought in the Great War. I think you can fight in wars and not be from the place you're fighting for. Well, that's true. But I'm positive he's from here. So? Bobble let the word stretch into infinity. Why is he so dark? Sai took a moment to articulate his explanation. I guess because his family, like his ancestors and such, weren't from here. You sound like you're not sure. Actually, I'm not. I know people in Africa are several shades darker than people in, say, Norway. Depends on how much sun they get. Interesting. It stays pretty fucking sunny in America, so why aren't we all darker? Because we're not from here. We're all European or something close to that. Ever hear the Mayflower, Plymouth Rock? May who? Plymouth what? Cy laughed. All right, back in the 1700s, if I recall correctly, a bunch of Europeans decided they didn't want to be lorded over by kings and queens, so they hopped on boats and came over here. But before that, in 1492, this one fellow from Spain, his name was Christopher Columbus, was headed toward India and stumbled across America instead. How in the world? He got lost. He thought he was in India, though. So he called the people who lived there Indians. Why we still call them that now that we know Columbus was just lost is anyone's guess. And these Indians, they were pale too? No, they were mostly dark, but not as dark as Hank, because we don't get nearly as much sun in America as they do in Africa. Huh, Bobble said, digesting this. So why don't we see more Indians? You know what? Cy said. That's a damn good question. Hank returned then, holding 3 thick leather belts with clasps attached. Been saving these for something, said Hank as he set about fastening the belts to the walls of the gondola. He cut all 3 in half with a pocket knife, leaving the buckles in the middle. Then he attached each severed end to the walls of the wheel's bucket, one across Cy's lap and 2 down his front, like a pair of suspenders, leaving the buckles in the middle of each as a means of allowing Cy out of the ride once they were done. Funny how you hold on to things when they don't have no more use, only to find a use for them somewhere down the road. Do you know many Negroes, Hank? Bobble asked. Hank stopped what he was doing and took a step back. He squinted down at Bobble with something akin to puzzlement. Say what now? Hank asked. You know, people that look like you. Uh, uh, where's all this coming from? Asked Hank. He's never seen someone as dark as you, Cy explained. For a time, Hank only stood there, staring, before finally he said, You're ready to go. Let me get this old bitch started. Hank jogged down the steps to the control panel, played with some buttons, and the wheels screeched to life. What was that all about? Asked Bobble. Cy could only shrug. Currently reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flamin' Fortune by S.E. Johnson. That's me, new pen name. Links are down there in the doobly-doo. Hope y'all are enjoying it. Smooth. You can even get a signed copy down there if you want. I'm going to read at least another subchapter and then take a break, I think. Yeah, I think that'll be good. Let me check the page count, because I'm trying to keep these to 2 hours. 100 pages. Okay, so that's going to be 3. All right. Okay, so this will definitely be 3 episodes. I would suspect. I don't know. I might be able to do 50 per. We'll see. 7. They started upward. The gondola rocked, but in no time was Bobble's head at an angle where it might fall forward. Hank had done a great job, and Bobble planned on thanking him profusely once the ride was over because, holy shit, was the view breathtaking. The grating squeals and metallic clicks of the ride's mechanisms in operation cut through Bobble's ears like razor blades through bacon, but Bobble tried his damnedest to ignore them. As the wheels spun and the gondola rose, Bobble gazed out over a lush landscape of greens and browns, a forest in the distance, the sun dangling just above the mountainous horizon, and the far cooler air up there combined to form sensory memories that would last a lifetime. Bobble felt massive, like a giant in a dollhouse world. Being up here gave him the view of a god, and he looked down on creation with a deity's omniscience. Never before had Bobble subscribed to religion, no matter how many nutcases the hag allowed into their home to sell doctrine like vacuum cleaners. But now, way up here above it all, the boy couldn't help but feel like this was, indeed, intelligent design. Chaos could never be this staggeringly beautiful. You okay? Asked Cy. I'm having the moment, but yes, I'm fine. Gorgeous, huh? That's the understatement of the century. You're going to be okay, I promise. I know. Hank did a great fucking job. No, said Cy. I mean, you're going to be all right now that you're living with us. We won't let anything happen to you. I won't let anything happen to you. Bobble couldn't find words to express himself properly, so he blinked repeatedly, saying, This is me nodding, by the way. I was wondering, I thought maybe it was a tick or something. The boys laughed shortly, then fell silent, Cy letting Bobble enjoy the view as the gondola rose and rose and rose. Once the wheel had rotated to the point where the gondolas above and before them blocked Bobble's view, Bobble said, My cock isn't as big as I make it out to be. Cy burst into guffaws, saying, Where'd that come from? Bobble giggled. Just thought you should know. Don't want you thinking I'm a liar should you ever see it. Cy, still laughing, said, Why would I ever see your penis? Why would I want to? It's not like I can cover it up. Yeah, but you wear clothes. Okay, fine. Let's say you walk in while someone's cleaning me up. Then you see my Johnson and think, didn't he call it his long and strong? Looks more like a short and cork. Why? Cy stammered with glee. Why the hell are we talking about your Johnson? What else is there to talk about? Fair enough, Cy said, calming a bit. Did you have any friends before you came here? Not many people to befriend when you rarely leave a closet. Or did you forget? Cy flinched as if struck. I'm sorry. You're fine is what you are. I appreciate the getting to know me bullshit, but I kind of just want to forget about my life before and focus on the here and now, if that makes sense. Makes complete sense. The boys passed Hank, where the man stood on the platform waving at them as they passed. Cy waved with one hand while grabbing one of Bobble's wrists in the other and flapped it. Stop! You're embarrassing me, said Bobble. Imagine how I feel being seen with you. Ouch! Bobble said, and both boys devolved into unfettered laughter. The ride made a full revolution, and the boys once again traveled upward. Bobble fell silent as he appreciated the view, not knowing when he'd have another chance to be so high above everything and everyone else. This time, though, he focused on the fairgrounds and saw the group of people amassing at the gate. Must have been 100 souls, at the very least, all waiting patiently for the carnival to open for the evening. He could sense their excitement from all the way across the midway and a good 300 feet up, for for their respective gondola was at 9 o'clock. By the time they hit 11, Bobble's angled placement in the car seat would restrict his view of the ground. So, what do you do here? Anything? Asked Bobble. What do you mean? Do you have a job? Chores? School? Any of that? Not really. I spend most of my time reading. Cy arched his back and reached a hand around to his back pocket. He removed a wrinkled paperback and held it up for Bobble to see. I'm working through this one now. The cover was an ugly olive green with a painting in the center displaying a black man standing to the right of the foot of some stairs with an overflowing trash can in the bottom left. Native Son was written above the image with the byline by Richard Wright underneath it. What's it about? Asked Bobble. It's about a guy named Bigger Thomas. His name's Bigger? What kind of name is that, for Christ's sake? It's just his name is all. Anyway, it's about him growing up poor in Chicago and how he gets in trouble all the time. Is it good? Yeah, it's great. Want me to read you some? Don't see why not. Cy spent the next rotation and a half reading the first page to Bobble. The sentences were short, fragmented, choppy, but Bobble loved the cadence. It had been so long since someone had read to him, yet he could still remember the stories the hag would share when he was but 2 months old. While Bobble was unaware of many things when he was... Hang on. While Bobble was aware of many things he should have had no knowledge of, he didn't think it odd in the slightest that he could remember as far back as his birth, even before his birth, if he concentrated hard enough, though floating in warm, wet darkness was more of a feeling he recalled than it was a visual recollection. The most present of these before-birth memories was haunting, muffled melodies seeping through into his consciousness. His mother would sit in her rocking chair, petting her belly and singing hymns to her unborn child. Bobble, not knowing where the sounds were coming from, had no clue that, at one time, his mother loved him dearly. Although it could be said that she was more in love with the idea of him than the actual reality of his existence. The most damning curse parents pass on to their children is expectation. When the wheel finally slowed on its last rotation, Cy stopped reading and returned the paperback to his back pocket. Did you like it? Asked Cy. Does a bear wipe its ass on a tree trunk? I'll take that as a yes, said Cy, chuckling. Did you ever go to school at all? The hag never let me go. She used to read to me when I was younger, but once I started talking, all that stopped. That's sad. That's me all over, pal. Not anymore, though, right? Right, Bobble agreed with a cheesy grin. I like it when you smile, said Cy. Thanks, but my teeth are fucking horrible. The hag never brushed them. They aren't so bad. Bobble rolled his eyes. Yes, they are. Do friends constantly lie to each other to make them feel better? I'm not lying, Cy said as the gondola made the final downward arc toward the platform. I really do like the way you smile. It's uniquely you, I guess is what I mean. Whatever you say, buddy, old pal, old friend. The wheel came to a squealing yet gentle halt. Hank set about removing Bobble from his car seat while Cy worked on his own straps. Then Hank placed Bobble back into his Barrow. Y'all enjoy yourselves? Hank asked, fists at his hips. It was fucking amazing, thank you, said Bobble. Yeah, thanks, Hank, added Cy. Carnival's about to open. Where y'all headed now? Cy said, I guess back to... But Bobble didn't hear the rest. His attention had been drawn away from the conversation by the passing of a group of women dressed in sequined halter tops and sheer skirts over sparkling bikini bottoms. Each body was perfect, in Bobble's opinion. Thin at the waist, curvy top to bottom. Thin veils covered their faces, as see-through as their flowing skirts, and Bobble realized that each of them resembled the others with only slight differences between them. Surely, thought Bobble, they had to be sisters. The women nearly floated on air, they moved so effortlessly. His groin stirred, a slight tickle growing to a solid ache as his penis filled with blood. Hey, Bobble called up to Hank and Cy. Who are they? Them's the cooch to. Sorry. Them's the cooch tent girls. Go-go dances is what some call them, said Hank. Distaste shone clearly on his face. The man didn't seem to take kindly to the group of women. They're off limits to everyone, so don't get you any ideas, Bobo. Not even sure why Mother Nature let them on with us. We used to be a family-friendly operation. Luckily, the show runs late. Doesn't start until after the geek show shuts down for the night. Father Time told me that's on purpose. Don't want one cutting into the profits of the other. Plus, Bull does security for the cooch tent, and he can't be in two places at once. Yeah, said Cy. Like Hank said, we're not allowed anywhere near their tent. Clay told me they show their you-know-whats. Bobble was only vaguely aware he was drooling as he said, You might know what's, but I don't know what's. Keep it in your pants, Bobsky, warned Hank. Them ladies are no good. Don't even feel right calling them ladies, truth be told. They can't be that bad, said Bobble. Yet he hoped they were exactly as bad as Hank supposed them to be. Something about them being beautiful and dangerous got Bobble's blood pumping. He was well aware he hadn't a snowball's chance in the devil's rectum of betting one of these broads, but that didn't mean he couldn't allow his imagination to run wild. We won't ever find out, said Cy. Come on, we have to get back to the car before too many rubes flood in. Mother Nature doesn't like me being out while the carnival's open. What's a rube? Asked Bobble. I'll explain on the way. Thanks again, Hank. No problem. Hank called after them as Cy pushed Bobble away in his Barrow. Remember what I said about them? Well, you know what. I know, Cy hollered, waving Hank away with one hand over his shoulder. What's his problem? Bobble asked when they were out of earshot of Hank. What do you mean? Why doesn't he like those dames? Hank isn't a big fan of the fairer sex, but then again, who knows what Hank thinks at any given time? I'm apt to listen to his advice, though. He's never led me astray before, and he has a good eye for people. I got a good eye for people, too. A real good eye. Two of them, in fact. Thanks a lot, Bucket Boy. Hey, it's the human bobblehead to you, cocksucker. You wished I sucked you know what? Cy was so uncomfortable cursing that Bobble found him quite amusing when he censored himself. Yet his amusement was short-lived as his thoughts returned to images of the Cooch Show girls and all the possibilities their mysteries held. He wanted to get a better look at them, up close and personal. But how? How indeed? You were going to tell me what a rube means, Bobble reminded Cy. They were almost to the caboose, and Bobble could now hear the excited voices of those Cy had referred to as such. Oh, yeah, okay. A rube is anyone not like us. They're the customers and show attendees. I think the literal definition is country types. The kind of people that don't get out much or linger in their own little existences, ignoring the wider world at large. But really, when we say it, it just means the people we're referring to aren't carnies. So I'm a carny now, huh? I like that word. Sure beats retard. To retard means to slow down, or something is slow. You don't move to begin with, so calling you a retard would be a misnomer. You read too goddamn much, you know that? One can never read too much, only too little. Bobble rolled his eyes, although Cy couldn't see him from back there, pushing the wheelbarrow like he was. Hey, said Cy. I was thinking, did it hurt? Shut up. Cy chuckled, then continued. I was gonna ask to join the geek show sometime soon, and I was wondering if I want to be stared at like I'm something to be pitied. What? No, of course not. That's not why people come to the shows. It's all about seeing something you've never seen before. I'm not so sure of that, buddy old pal. Seems to me people feel sorry for people who ain't like them. Trust me on this. That's absurd. Is it? Cy didn't answer. Bobble cut through the uncomfortable silence with, Anyway, I'd love to. What? Really? But I thought, you think too goddamn much. I mean, all I have to do is sit in this shitmobile to entertain some rubes? Sounds like an easy gig. Uh, okay. I'll ask mom if you can join me. We could be a team. Teamwork makes the dream work. I like that. Thanks. Just thought of it. All right. Right at an hour. Ooh, that's spooky. I looked up. It was 10000. Anyways, we're reading from The Last Freak Show, Book 1, Flame and Fortune by S.E. Johnson. I'm going to go ahead and take my break. When I come back, I will read another about 20-25 pages. This chapter is probably going to be 2 or 3 episodes. I thought it was shorter than it was. We might be able to do it in 2. But anyways, I'm going to take a 15-minute break. And when I get back, we will continue on. Oh, yeah, links are down there in the doobly-doo if you want to buy a copy. All right, guys. I'm going to call it quits for tonight. Something came up. Everybody and everything is okay, but I got to take care of something. Next week, I will do a double long stream. I'll probably do 3 or 4 hours next week. And I hang out in chat some point in time. Anyways, thank y'all for joining me tonight. I gotta go. But until next time, I have been E. You have been you. This has been another reading of The Last Freak Show. If you're interested in the book, links are down there in the doobly-doo. Y'all have a good night. Bye-bye. And